Hi there everyone, thanks for joining me this morning. My name's Kathy. I'm a medical herbalist and founder at Into the Wild, and this morning I'm going to be talking to you about 5 myths about thrush and debunking those for you. Now, why am I doing this? Basically, a lot of the women that I speak to don't know what thrush is, and a lot of the women that I speak to also that have thrush have said, we've never spoken to anyone else apart from you, or perhaps our GP, they may have seen a GP, about thrush, about our thrush and what we're suffering with. And I just think if women aren't talking to each other about it, then the information's not getting out there, and no wonder people don't know too much about it. And I think the more knowledge you have about that, then the more power you have in that, and the more you're able to treat yourself. And it's also about breaking down feeling kind of if you have feelings of shame about it, or bad self-worth, or low self-esteem because of it. I really think that we need to start breaking down that taboo, basically, because apart from having a medical condition, there's nothing intrinsically wrong with you. And it's about kind of just really empowering yourself. This month, on the 30th, with this in mind, I'm launching National Thrush Awareness Day. Basically for exactly those reasons. It's about education, it's about raising awareness, and it's about just feeling better about yourself and knowing what to do, okay? So it starts here. It's the first year. Give me your support, that would be fabulous. And as I say, so if you are interested in this, or you know people that are going to be interested, just share this live with them. I'd really appreciate that. Now, as we go through the 5 different myths that I'm going to be debunking, you don't need to take any notes at all, because straight after this, I'm going to be putting an article with all this information onto my website for you to have a look at. So that is, my website is intothewild.com, and wild is WYLDE, so that's intothewild.com. And basically, if you go to a page there called Thrush Awareness, the article's going to be there. Also, you'll have the opportunity to sign up to receive my 3-step guide that I've put together for you, which goes into the basics around thrush. So if you're suffering with thrush, or you think you might be, it talks about the symptoms, it talks about what isn't thrush, so things that are similar to thrush but aren't. It also tells you when you probably need to go and see a GP, and it also tells you some things you can do at home to help. So let's kick off. Did you know, for example, that 90% of all women will suffer with thrush once in their lives, at least once? That's quite a lot of us, to be honest. And of those 90%, 50 or 60% are also going to be suffering with it more than once in their lives. That could be 2 or 3 times in a lifetime, which seems reasonable. It seems fair enough. However, did you know that between 5 and 9% of all women suffer with thrush recurrently? And that's quite a large number of women, and that's quite a large number of women suffering with it silently. So in this case, recurrent is classed as 4 times a year or more. Quite often it's more. Some women live with it up to 80 or 90% of their lives, which is quite a long time, you know? Quite a lot of time to be in discomfort and pain and probably not feeling too good about themselves. And we're suffering with it silently as well. Again, women are just not talking about it with their friends, with their partners, with their loved ones, not even necessarily with their GPs. They're just suffering in silence. So let's break it down. This May it begins. As I said, on the 30th of May, I'm going to be launching National Thrush Awareness Day. Let's get some good information out there. So, okay, let's start with myth number 1. And myth number 1 is that thrush is an STI, or a sexually transmitted infection. It's not a sexually transmitted infection. Okay, it's not something that can be caused by sex. It can be something that is transmitted between sexual partners, and if you're someone who's suffering with it recurrently, it can be passed backwards and forwards between you if you're having unprotected sex. Okay, so if your partner is a man, in men it presents very, very differently to how it presents in women. In women, the basic symptoms are itching and burning in the vagina and in the vulva area, and also a white discharge that can have a kind of cottage cheese consistency, and it smells a bit yeasty. Okay, so it smells a bit like maybe yeast, bread or beer, kind of the yeasty aspect of that smell. Okay, in men, they generally don't have a discharge. They might not even have itching. They might just be honest to have a little bit of red around the head of the penis, around the glands, and just underneath the foreskin, and that's all they might have, but they may be passing it back to you. Okay, so what can you do about that? I would say always use a condom. If you are suffering, use a condom. Treat both partners, so you and your partner. And it's also worth bearing in mind that latex may be a bit irritating as well, especially if you're very inflamed there. You may find it inflames, and once you inflame, you make yourself more likely to get an infection in terms of thrush, or you leave yourself susceptible basically. So you may want to use a non-latex condom. It's worth just seeing what works for you. It's also worth noting lubes as well. You may want to use a lube too, and that you may find that really helps you. But it's worth noting quite a lot of generic lubes can again irritate the vaginal mucosa. They do their job well of lubrication, but afterwards you may not feel too good down there afterwards. So I'm going to be putting an article together quite soon talking about what to look for in a good lube, and a lube that is going to be non-irritant for you. So that's worth looking for again, and that is going to be coming out on my Thrush Awareness page on my website, which is intothewild.com, and wild is spelled W-Y-L-D-E. Okay, the second myth that I want to debunk, number 2, is that thrush is caused by poor hygiene. It is not because you're dirty. There is nothing dirty about having thrush, and quite often it can be caused actually by washing too often. Okay, so I really want to break down the myth that if you've got thrush, you're dirty and that you should be ashamed, or you feel ashamed, or anything like that. You're not dirty. There is nothing to feel ashamed about in terms of that. You can feel quite a lot of disgust for yourself as well. That's quite a thing that women often feel, essentially, when they have recurrent thrush. It is not down to poor hygiene at all. So when I say it can be caused by possibly overwashing, you might be washing more because you think, I'm dirty, I need to get rid of this, quite understandably. But if you're washing a lot, then you're going to be kind of ruining the kind of good bacterial environment that you've got down there, and you're opening yourself up, and the pH down there as well. And it's opening yourself up to opportunistic infection, which can be thrush again. So the more you're washing, the more you're upsetting your pH. Now, the pH of the vagina is naturally acidic, so it's 3.5 to 4.5 pH. And it's there for a reason to be that, which is to stop opportunistic infection. That's a healthy environment, an acidic vagina, great stuff. Washing with quite a lot of perfumed soaps and things have got an entirely different pH, more of a neutral pH, which is actually more alkali. You're changing your environment down there. You can wash with, I would say, water is a good thing. Generally, the vagina is actually self-cleaning, that's internally, but if you want to wash the external areas, if you want to use something at all, use a pH, slightly acidic soap. There's things out there on the market. Something that's unperfumed, something that's natural, something that's gentle. Okay. So you're not dirty, basically. Don't go around feeling that you're dirty in any way. And one thing to bear in mind as well is that thrush is caused by a fungi, not a bacteria. Okay. So in a way, washing will help kind of remove the spores, but it's not actually going to get rid of any bacteria, okay, because it's not a bacterial problem. this leads very, very nicely onto the third myth. And the third myth that I often hear, and this is the one I think most commonly I hear from women, is that thrush is the same thing as a UTI, such as cystitis. So UTI stands for urinary tract infection, the most common one being cystitis. And they're really, really not the same thing. So a UTI is caused by bacteria, and that's in the urinary tract. The urinary tract is the bit that you pee out of, and it's not the same as the vagina. So they're atomically quite close to each other, and you may feel a burning sensation with both. With a UTI, generally you have burning on peeing. You can have a feeling of burning on peeing with thrush as well. But that is coming specifically from your urethra when you go to the toilet. And that's caused by bacteria. As I said, thrush is caused by a fungus, and that inhabits the vagina. So they're both uncomfortable, but they're caused by different things. They feel close together in the body. It can be quite difficult to differentiate. If it's the first time you've had either of them, I would seriously go and get yourself checked out. Either go and see a medical herbalist or your GP and just chat through the symptoms, and they're going to be able to help you work out what's going on for you. Okay, so the fourth myth that I'm going to be debunking today is that thrush can damage your fertility. There has been no evidence that thrush can damage your fertility at all. However, if you are pregnant, it is possible, you're more susceptible basically to developing thrush. And there's a couple of points I want to make around that. So the first one is that if you do have thrush, you shouldn't use, and you're pregnant obviously, you can't use pessaries within the last 2 weeks before your due date. That's not advised at all. So that's worth bearing in mind. And also the other thing that I want to bear in mind is that when there's been an awful lot of research recently around, and you may have seen it online, you may have heard about it in the news, about the human microbiome. So that's basically every individual has their own unique microbiome. And when I say microbiome, I'm talking about all the bacteria that inhabit your body, good and bad. And the good bacteria are there, they're very, very beneficial to you. They can help, they're basically a first line part of your immune defence, and they're on your skin, they're in your digestive tract, they're even in your vagina basically. There's a lot of things that live with us as humans kind of alongside us, and they can be beneficial, such as good bacteria. They can be not so beneficial, such as I'd say probably about 70% of us have the fungi that causes thrush, which is Candida albicans, just living happily in our bodies under control. So it's not constantly breaking out into kind of systemic Candida, and it's not breaking out as thrush. It just lives happily side by side because the good bacteria and our immune systems are keeping it under control. So come back to the human microbiome. Basically everyone's got their own unique set of good bacteria that are living in their bodies. Part of that is given to you as you're born, coming out of the birth canal. Okay, so it's ideal, really. What you're really aiming for is to ideally not have thrush as you give birth. Great, that's great in practice, and it's it's great. And if you can't use pessaries 2 weeks before you give birth, it is worth going to see a medical herbalist to talk about ways you can deal with thrush while you're pregnant, basically. So I hope that makes sense. If you've got any questions, do type them in, because I can answer them at the end. Or ping me an email or send me a message. But it'd be great if you can get questions on here, and then I can answer them for everyone. And people can just check them out on the replay as well. Okay. And the last myth that I want to debunk today, and one that I've seen really shockingly commonly actually, is that you can treat thrush with antibiotics. Now, if you think about the word antibiotic, the biotic part is to do with bacteria, so it's killing something that kills bacteria. and antibiotics kill good and bad bacteria kind of indiscriminately. That's their job, and they're very, very much needed. It's life-saving medicine. However, if you have been prescribed antibiotics for what you believe is thrush, either you don't have thrush and something else is going on, or you've been given incorrect medication, okay? And I'll tell you why. Thrush is, as I said, it's caused by a fungi. In the majority of cases, it's Candida albicans. An antibiotic is not going to work on a fungi. It's going to kill bacteria, not fungi. That's the first thing. The second thing to bear in mind is when you take antibiotics, as I said, you knock out the good and the bad bacteria. Great to knock out the bad bacteria if you're suffering with bacterial infection. Knocking out the good bacteria, however, impacts on your immune system. So this is kind of a first line of defence, the good bacteria. The good bacteria can help keep things like Candida under control, both in your digestive system and in the vagina, okay? And knocking out those good bacteria, it's not the best. Sometimes you need to take it and you happen to have thrush. Sometimes you need to take them and you get thrush afterwards as a result. If you go onto my webpage, which is intothewild.com, and wild is WYLDE, I've got a resources page there that just indicates a few good suppliers of good quality probiotics. So probiotics would be great to take after you finish taking a course of antibiotics, okay? And if you want more information about that, do get in touch with me, do email me, do leave a message here. That's absolutely fine. Okay, so if you've liked what you've seen, if you think you know anyone that's going to benefit from this information, please share this. Please let them know about Into the Wild. If you yourself want to get more information and you haven't already signed up, do sign up. I have got a 3-step guide called Thrush 101 on my site, and basically it's an introduction to thrush, and you will get information about what thrush is, what the symptoms are, because there's some other conditions that are similar, they present slightly similarly, such as bacterial vaginosis, and you need to be treated differently for that, basically. So this goes through the symptoms and what is and what isn't thrush. It will also show you when you need to go and see a GP. And we'll also talk about some things that you can try at home for yourself to help get rid of thrush naturally. If you've tried those and you find they're not quite enough for you, if it's, say, you're a recurrent thrush sufferer, you may find that you need something else as well. That's absolutely fine. Get in touch with me. And I do see people on a one-to-one basis in my clinic on a Saturday, and maybe we need to have a chat there. As I say, do try the 3 things at home first. So I have asked for questions, and we've got someone in who's saying that they've been prescribed antibiotics before when they've had recurrent thrush. Wow. And I wonder how that worked. What was your experience of that? I'd be really interested to know, because I doubt very much that it's going to be helpful for you. In fact, it's almost certainly not going to have been helpful. I have had a couple of questions in, so I've been emailed before we went live today. So one of the questions here is, do topical creams work, or is it better to use something internally? Good, very, very good question. I would say if it's your first time you've ever had thrush, use a topical cream and try that. The aim of the game here, at the end of the day, is to get rid of your thrush, okay? So if using a topical cream works, that's absolutely brilliant. I'm very happy. If, however, you find you need something a little bit more because a topical cream isn't enough, then yes, something internally can be good. So what do we mean when we think of something internally? Now, there's a couple of things we could mean. First of all, if you go to the chemist, you can get pessaries. Okay, and those pessaries, excuse me, come in the form of like a hard pessary that's like a large tablet or capsule. It's not a capsule, but a tablet, I guess, like a caplet. That's kind of what it looks like. So you can use that, or you can get cream pessaries as well, which actually feel nicer to use, I think. They just feel better, especially if you're quite inflamed there. They're just nicer on the skin. However, it's worth mentioning with these, and also if you can get the capsules from your GP, has to prescribe those as well, the one capsule that you can take. You can't take either the pessaries or that capsule more than once in a 2-week period because they're quite heavy on your liver. Okay, so that's worth knowing. So if you're having it recurrently, that might not be enough for you. Okay. If you go and see a herbalist, you can get herbal pessaries. So they're made with entirely different ingredients. They're made with a range of different herbal antifungals. Okay, so quite a common one might be marigold and tea tree pessaries. Unfortunately, you can't buy those over the counter. You have to go and see a herbalist to get those. Okay, but it's possible. That exists, and you can take more than one every 2 weeks. Generally, a normal prescription would be something like one every other evening, or one every day for 5 days, something like that. Okay, and they can talk about how to use them. But also, when we talk about something internally, yes, internal medicine can be really good as well. So I've just got a message in. Okay, yeah, talking about how antibiotics can make us psychologically feel better. Absolutely. And how crazy is that? We're losing our kind of effectiveness of antibiotics because of the overuse of them. Worth bearing in mind. Okay, so getting back to talking about internal medicine, if you go and see a herbalist, they can give you medicines internally that help to combat the fungus, the fungi, the overgrowth, the inflammation, the itching, the soreness, from the inside. Okay, so you're taking something internally that's going to be helping you with that. And they can also advise on diet and lifestyle. Generally, if people are suffering with recurrent thrush, there's quite a few things that you can try. There's a lot of things you can try, but certain things will be the key for you. So it's always good to get like an individualised treatment plan on that. And a really, really great question here is, can I still have sex when I have thrush? We talked about that just a little bit before. Yes, you can. Quite often though, women feel that they don't want to. If they're suffering with it recurrently, you may really, really be fed up with that part of your body. You just want to ignore it. You've tried everything that you can think of and it hasn't worked, and you're just very, very sick of it. So you might not feel particularly as though you're wanting to engage in sex. That's entirely understandable, but you are still a sexual being, and it's still absolutely your right to feel that as well. So a lot of the work that I do is about helping women get back in touch with that part of themselves, to kind of stop feeling or wanting to be numb there, basically. And I talked a little bit before about how using condoms, possibly non-latex ones, and lube can really help with that as well. And just having an understanding partner and really talking about it. I think ensuring that your partner is treating themselves as well, even if they think doesn't look like there's anything wrong, doesn't feel like there's anything wrong. That's super important. Okay. So those are my 5 myths that I've debunked today. I hope you've really enjoyed that. If you like what you've seen, please share. Please let all your friends know about it. And it's really time we started talking about thrush, get some good information out there so that we don't carry on getting prescribed antibiotics, we don't carry on thinking there's something wrong with us, or there's something to be ashamed about, that we're dirty. It's just part of everyday life, and unfortunately some people happen to suffer with it more than others. Everyone will have a different cause for why that is. That's what's so amazing about being human. We're also very, very individual. And as I say, if you do want to sign up and receive my 3-step guide about thrush, and also exclusive content that I put out for everyone, please head over to my site, which is intothewild.com. That's WYLDE. And just sign up there. There's a couple of places you can sign up, but if you go over to the Thrush Awareness page, straight after this I'm going to be putting up an article all about debunking these 5 myths, and it's just on that page as well there. And yes, thank you so much for your time. I say, if you've got any questions or you want to know more, do get in touch, send me a message, send me an email. I'm here for you basically, and hopefully we'll meet each other again soon. Okay, thanks so much. See you soon. Bye.